Don't you love it when things are both easier and more affordable? Like when the rain washes your car for you. Or like when you save up to 10% by bundling your renters and auto insurance with USAA. Bundle with USAA and start saving. Get a quote today.
At Patron, we craft our tequila using high-quality natural ingredients without additives. No sweeteners, no extracts, no secrets. In fact, Patron's secret ingredient is that we have no secret ingredients. Just 100% additive-free tequila, made with 100% Weber Blue Agave, water, and thyme. Patron, 100% additive-free tequila. Visit patrontequila.com to learn more. The perfect way to enjoy Patron is responsibly. Copyright 2025, imported by Patron Spirits Company, Coral Gables, Florida. Tequila 40% ABV.
It's time for basketball, and Uber Eats is dropping deals on game day favorites to keep you locked in on the action. Like when you're craving a buzzer beater, but also buffalo wings. Or when an upset makes you want to ugly cry into a pizza. And right now, Uber Eats has game day deals from Burger King, Buffalo Wild Wings, KFC, and hundreds more local favorites. So you can keep your eyes on the ball and your hands on a burger. Order now, only on Uber Eats. Product availability varies by region. See app for details.
This is a Find the Edge production of the Premier League Cricket Show. If you haven't already, hit follow or subscribe or whatever you need to do to ensure all new episodes appear automatically in your podcast player. Shall we get to it? Right, everybody, we've got our head coach, Tom Scolls, on the line from Perth, and we want to talk today as we get towards that fabulous time of year when we all get in the nets and it's pre-season and, you know, one or two people with aching bones start to run in on hard surfaces in those gyms around the country. But Scolls, I just want you to talk us through the most important thing and the number one reason I believe that we wanted you as our head coach. The 6 pillars that you utilise for cricket mentoring for me are so simple but so satisfying to hear about.
Yeah, look, I came up with these a few years ago when I was pretty deep into my coaching, but also upon reflection of my own career and where I struggled and didn't quite make it. And it's all the things that I think is any young athlete, not just cricket, and it's sort of, I think it applies to any sport, needs to be doing to become the best they can be. And so it's technical, tactical, mental, emotional, physical, and lifestyle. Now, it could be 5 pillars and you could put the mental and emotional together because they're so interconnected and linked, but we've separated them just to highlight that they are sort of they act in their own way a little bit. So, yeah, look, I think that for anyone who's listening to this, wants to be the best they can be, you've got to really be evaluating and working out how you can develop and learn just a little bit in each of the 6 pillars. And I've been saying to young athletes, I think I've had 3 calls with people today about how can you get 1% better in each pillar. If you can get 1% better each week, and it's not something you can actually measure, but if you can have the strive to just get that little bit better every single day, a little bit better every single week, technically, a little bit better tactically, a little bit better mentally and emotionally, a little bit better physically, well, those marginal gains add up to huge improvements. So, yeah, look, I think most people who you're talking to there who are getting back into the nets, they focus on how many balls can I hit, and they might go for the odd run. But for me, when I was growing up, that was me. I was hitting as many balls as I could. I was studying the game of cricket, and I was as fit as I could be. So I was ticking the boxes technically, tactically, and sort of physically. But the thing that I lacked was the mental and emotional pillars and understanding of myself, and that's what held me back. And that's why I'm really passionate about it now.
So we've got, a lot of clubs will be rolling up at the local school, local leisure centre, indoor cricket school. There's all kinds of places get used these days, obviously. Which one of those 6 pillars would you say in the first 2 or 3 weeks they need to focus on the most, or is it just getting the body moving once again? Yeah,
look, I think in a group setting, most sessions are focused around the skill, all right? And so it's run in, it's bowl, it's bat. And you might not even be focused technically when you're facing bowlers, but you might be focused more on the contest and making decisions, which sort of falls under the mental pillar. But I think it's just as an individual trying to understand how do I get a little bit better in each of these pillars. So you might be going and doing your technical, like you might go and have your hit with your mates in your training session. You're doing that once or twice a week. Then you're going to have a hit with your private coach and you're working on your cover drive, you're trying to develop your flick shot, or you're trying to develop a sweep shot, or you're working on the fundamentals or the technique of something, working on a leggy if you're a bowler or whatever it is. Then it's like, okay, how do I get a little bit smarter about the game? How do I get like watching cricket, listening to cricket, taking notes when you're watching cricket, listening to what the commentators are saying, and then how do you work on your mental game? How do you develop and build a mental routine and processes for the night before, the morning of, getting to the ground, and then most importantly, in between balls? How do you, like, what's your mindset and your process, and how are you thinking about the game? How are you showing up? How are you talking to yourself about the game? Are you being really negative and really hard on yourself? Or are you being quite soft and kind and allowing yourself the freedom to make mistakes? And so, look, I think most people that listen to this aren't, I'd assume, going to be running sessions, but they can maybe suggest, like, why don't we do an hour and a half of nets, and then let's get a whiteboard out and talk about the tactics of cricket for half an hour. Maybe that's something that people could do, like, or let's set up a session so you can only score through the offside, and the bowlers then have to bowl to try and shut down the offside, and the batters have to hit balls through the offside. And that's not a technical thing, but that's more of a tactical thing. How do I learn to maneuver the ball through the offside where there might be gaps, or setting things up? And then maybe it's like to tick the physical pillar. It's making, as a group, you're doing 15 minutes of fitness at the end of every session. Maybe as a group, you're doing a 10-minute meditation at the end of every session, because that's learning how to focus your attention on the present moment. So look, I think when you're getting back into it, which was your initial question, it's probably just getting your skill set, ironing out some cobwebs, getting back into it, seeing your mates and doing those sort of things. But then as things start to progress, it gets a bit more serious, and it's sort of like, how can you just get a little bit better in each one?
We have, guys, listen to this, they might be a Premier League player, he's averaging 30, 35, and wants to take their game to the next level. They want to be that next Joel Curtis. They want to jump into the program. They're 22. They've maybe been in the system and popped out. What would you say, if you took that generic player, is it the mental side of the game that is probably the bit that's missing most?
Can I name that generic player?
Ian Livingston.
No, Zach Crawley.
I'm not sure about that.
But a Premier League player with that set of numbers that Zach's gone through recently.
Yeah.
He's going to go back into his nets. Where does that go? To pick on what Hugh said.
Well, look, if you're talking about him specifically, he would have a very good understanding of his game, and I would, if I was working with him, I'd say, right, like, where are you at? And it's player led. It's got to be player led. So he then needs to make an evaluation of where he's at, and I would be trying to maybe ask the right questions to get him to identify what's working and what's not. And then I would probably do a comparison of what are you like when you're at your best? Let's describe your best. Let's really define and describe your best. When were you at your best? What were you doing? What were you thinking? What were you feeling? What was your technique? Like, break it down into each sort of element. And then say, okay, where are you at now? Where are the gaps? And at that level, the gaps can be like tiny, but they make a big. He might be slightly off with his balance. He might be slightly off with, like, and I think at that level it does become technical, but then they get their attention gets shifted and diverted off just what they are when they are at their best. Mm-hmm. So it's just trying to realign and then build the trust that, it's going to come. Like, you got to keep working, putting in the work, go back to the fundamentals, and then keep working. Now, if it was a younger player or someone who isn't as experienced or doesn't quite understand, it would be a similar process, but I would have to try and maybe lead them a bit more. But ultimately, no one knows themselves better than themselves. So it would be, as a mentor or a coach, my job is to help them learn about themselves and their game the most, and then overlay that with fundamentals that work in the game, within the game of cricket, technically or tactically or mentally. But everyone is at a different stage. Like, you could give me two 22-year-olds who are averaging the same, and one is in a really good place mentally, but technically keeps getting hit on the front pad and is falling over and whatever. And we need to spend a lot of time working on their body and their positions to face those types of bowlers. And you could give me someone else who's technically amazing and they hit down the ground and they're batting beautifully, but they keep getting caught at cover, or they get out during drinks around breaks, or they're doing something mentally. They just look great for 20 and then they play a shit shot. And it would be working on their belief systems and their thought processes. And so it's hard to sort of be generic with this. I think it's always just there's like 7 or 8 technical things it could be, and there's about the same mental things it could be. But it's sort of, that means there's 15 or 20 things in total it could be. So it's sort of working out where are you at, what's lacking, and usually it doesn't take much to sort of steer them back to where they need to be to perform at their best.
Yeah, just looking at say your generic Premier League player comes and has some sessions with you, Scolls. Where how much time do you spend in a net environment, and how much time do you spend in a classroom environment? Obviously, it sounds like it depends on the player, but is it something that you do? It's not just throwing balls. There's some sort of classroom personal elements as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not a classroom as such, because a lot of cricketers won't want to go into a classroom, but it's
probably sitting in a classroom myself.
Yeah. No, but it's a lot of the time they come into the nets and then we might talk for the whole session. We might just talk and review and reflect and explore, and maybe hit for 5 minutes at the end just to give them a hit. But sometimes there's no hitting. But other times it's things are going well and it's like, let's just get into it. Usually when things aren't going well, that's when you talk more. That's when you ask more questions, you reflect, and you're trying to find answers. And people generally find it a bit hard to find answers on their own if they're not good at asking the right questions. So that's where I ask questions and we explore. And the more I know someone, the more I can go, right, this is what you used to do. No, you're not seem to be doing that anymore. So it's a combination. It's a real combination. And that's what I lacked is, for me, it was in the nets myself all the time, hitting balls, work harder. But I didn't understand the exploring of myself, my thoughts. What did I think when I played well? How did I show up to the ground on the days when I played well? And how did I show up when I didn't play well? Because that is a huge thing. I'll share a personal story that when I decided I was going to retire or stop playing for Perth Cricket Club here in Perth, nearly 4 years ago now. It was around Christmas time. My wife was pregnant with our second child. And I was sort of, 2 weeks off over Christmas or whatever, pottering around the house. And I started to just have these flashbacks of my career and all these happy moments in my career. I scored 100 in a final at the Wacker. And I was thinking back to hundreds for Eastcote, hundreds for Crouch End, all these great innings in my career in England for Middlesex and whatever. And then I just spent sort of the best part of 2 weeks thinking about all these great moments cricket has given me, and personal success, but team success and fun moments. And then there's no coincidence that the second half of that season, I played the best cricket I'd played in 10 years, because I was showing up to cricket in a really confident state, believing I was good enough. Whereas a lot of the rest of the time I was showing up, come on, Scoll's got to do well. Even when I was old, I was like, okay, I don't want to I'm cricket mentoring. I don't want to look silly. I don't want to let people down. I want to bat well. I've got some of my students in the opposition. There was this constant sort of dialogue going on that was hard to shut down. So I wish that I'd spent more time when I was younger understanding and looking within about, okay, when I show up, when I play well, I'm really calm. I'm really just having fun and I'm excited and I'm really connected to the team and my mates. So what I learned as I got older was I needed to be sitting with my teammates before going out to bat and laughing and joking and telling stories and feeling connected. And if a wicket would fall, I'd often sort of quickly finish a story and put my helmet on, gloves on and walk out. And that made me feel quite calm because I wanted to feel connected, as opposed to sitting on my own and listening to music, which I did a bit when I was younger, would do the opposite. That would just instinctively make me feel disconnected. And then I'm under pressure to do well. And if I don't do well, I'm going to be an outcast. And so much of our psyche as humans is we want to fit in. And so I've been speaking to a lot of players recently about the idea of we show up to cricket and we just don't want to suck. And so when we get to 15 or 20, we're like, oh, I haven't sucked today. And we throw our wicket away because we're content, right? And that's literally because all we want to do is fit in as a human being. Going back to evolution days, if we didn't fit in, we'd die. We'd be outcast as a pack and we'd die. So as human beings, we want to fit in. And kids, these like players and people are like, oh, I got to 20. And subconsciously, they're like, oh, I haven't sucked today. And they're okay with that. And then they throw their wicket away, as opposed to the best players like, I got to 20. That's not enough. I want to keep going. So, yeah, look, all these things I really wish I understood and was able to explore when I was younger, and not just focused on the physical hit balls, run, hit balls, go to the gym, etc.
And I think what's fascinating there in particular is that, for players and clubs who are going back to pre-season nets right now, I just know that 95% of those players who are going to run in and bowl or going to be at the other end batting, all they're thinking is technical right now. They're all thinking technical first and foremost, when actually, a player who's averaging 30, 35, a Premier League player averaging 35, my simple message to him would be, all you want to do is increase that from 35 to 35 and a half this year if you can, because then you're better. And in 36 the year after, then you're better. And it is asking that question, what do you need to do just to be that 1% better every single time, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And it's like I had an outlier of a season where things clicked for me, and I went from averaging 30 to 80 in one season, and I wasn't able to sustain that. I wasn't able to do that. That was very much an outlier. But I unlocked this mindset and emotional state where I was able to play with freedom and express myself. And that to me was my my A game. That was my best, but I very rarely got there. And so to me, it's like even someone who's averaging 35, that they have potential to average 60 or 70 if they can unlock something within. But that's not probably going to come from a technical shift. That's going to come sort of from a mental and emotional shift where they get into a place where they are trusting themselves and they're playing with freedom and they're having fun and they're in a really good space mentally and emotionally. They can have these amazing seasons, which I did have throughout my career. I had a season with Middlesex Twos where I averaged 60. I had that last part of my career where I got 450s in my last 5 innings. I had the one season for Melville where I averaged 82, and they were all outliers because I got into the right mental and emotional space in that period. But the rest of the time, I was sort of thinking about where I wanted to be or worrying about what was below me, or I was thinking about my average versus someone else, and I was like not where I wanted to be. I was trying too hard. I was training too much. Like I just didn't get it right the rest of the time. So to me, that person you're talking about, yeah, if they can really do some work on themselves and understanding themselves and why they're playing the game, what the game means to them, and really tap into enjoying it and not worrying about the outcome, that's when they could actually have this amazing season that every single person dreams of.
I'm sure you possibly or probably read the book Moneyball, which is famous throughout sport now as this sort of Bible of economics within sport. But one of the things that jumped out at me from that book, Billy Beane, the sort of main character in it, who's gone on to have huge success with the Oakland Athletics and beyond into the world of sport, he was a first round draft pick in baseball, and it didn't happen for him. He got bits and pieces of baseball here and there, but it didn't happen for him. He was meant to be this superstar, but it never happened for him. But his mate, who came through at the same time, who was drafted in the 16th round, and I forget the player's name, went on to win the World Series, and he was able to pinpoint it. Speaking obviously afterwards, but also at the time, and that this guy he didn't have the physical attributes of Billy Beane, but he just had this mental approach. He was completely free. He had no fear. He had no fear of failure. He just went out there and played the game like he did when he was a child. Whereas Billy Beane, whenever he was at bat, was restricted and constrained by himself, by this. Yeah. He'd never failed. Billy Beane had never failed up until that point, really. He'd just succeeded all the way through, and then failure, and he couldn't handle it. Whereas this, much lesser player was able to just put it all together.
Yeah, I work so much with athletes on trying to get back to their kid mindset of like enjoying the game, and like 3 words that I utilize: how good's this? Like that's what I was thinking in those last few games before I retired, was like, how good's this? I'm playing with my mates. It's a Saturday and I'm with my mates. I'm not working. How good's this? I'm in the sun. How good's this? I'm healthy and I can run because there's a guy over on the side there in a wheelchair. Like how good's this that I'm competing and I'm doing something I love, and like really getting back to just truly enjoying little things, not just I play cricket to score hundreds and I only have fun when I score hundreds, because that's how so many people think.
Definitely. I think this time last year, I spent an evening with the now, and they will be going back there very shortly, European champions, Hornchurch Cricket Club, where one of your old teammates, Jalpesh Vijay, plays. And you could see amongst that group of players there exactly what you've just described. You know, they are just literally playing cricket with their mates. And don't get me wrong, these are some serious mates who've brought in some serious players from the outside. But they are a bunch of mates who go out there and play cricket and have the privilege of, you know, winning the T20 for nationals a couple of years ago, and then going out to win the European Championship. And it's just, what could be better than doing that? Playing with your mates and, you know, getting on a plane all paid for by European Cricket to go and play out in Cartama and play cricket again. It doesn't get any better.
It also gets better when you've got an 11-foot lad called Mohammed Irfan, who's straight out of first grade, bowling on an Astro in Spain.
Yeah, but they didn't have him for the group stage.
No, he's quite useful in the final, though, sticking it up their noses, yeah.
So you see like professional teams, and like I think of AFL here in Australia, and you see that like grand final day where there's millions of people watching. It's winner takes all. You've worked for 10 months for this moment, and you see the players, they're smiling, they're joking, they're having a good time. And what I'm talking to a lot of athletes now is like when you're a kid, you fall in love with the game, and not just cricket. You fall in love with whatever sport or whatever it is you do. You then play because you love it, and then at some point it becomes about, how do I get better? I've got to get better. I'm competing with him and him. Who's in the team? Who's not? How do I make the next level? And everything becomes about performance, and that's okay, and it drives us to get better. But it restricts so many people because they're not playing with freedom. They then start playing with fear. And they're playing with, what have I got to lose? What have I got to gain? Where am I at? What am I? And it's this mindset of not enjoying what you're doing. You're only really then enjoying when you have the results, which as a batter especially are few and far between. And then eventually the best players get through that, and they get to a place of going, yeah, I'm going to enjoy what I do. Like, let's go back to enjoying it. And that is really liberating and freeing. And often that's when they go on these great runs, and they're like, and they still have their downs, they still have their struggles, they still, excuse me, have moments where they're maybe not enjoying it, but mostly they get back to this love and joy of what they're doing.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Last week was our first playoff game, and my plaque psoriasis was so itchy under all my gear. Sometimes just thinking about scratching could take me out of the moment. And then my doctor told me I could get clearer skin with a pill called Otezla.
Otezla apremilast is a prescription medicine used to treat adult patients with plaque psoriasis for whom phototherapy or systemic therapy is appropriate. Otezla can help you get clearer skin after just 4 months.
Okay, ready for the next game. Talking to my doctor about a pill was a total game changer.
Don't use Otezla if you're allergic to it. Get medical help right away if you have trouble breathing or swallowing, swelling of the face, lips, tongue, throat, or arms. Severe diarrhea, nausea or vomiting, depression, suicidal thoughts, or weight loss can happen. Tell your doctor if any of these occur and if you have a history of depression or suicidal thoughts. Live in the moment. Ask your doctor about Otezla. Call 1-844-4-OTEZLA or visit Otezla.com for prescribing info about cost, and more.
If you look at the England team, what baffles me about the current England setup is the press, when they do lose, are just all over them. And it's like we've forgotten the last 20 years of total garbage. Well, from 2010, probably last time, 10-11, when we won Down Under. But it's such a joy to watch these guys. And yes, they completely blow it on a relatively regular basis, but they've just won 2-1 away in New Zealand. Who've just beaten India 3-0. They're looking really well set for the Ashes next year. Australia's probably looking at that series thinking this is going to be interesting so long as our quicks are fit. It's not going to be the usual one-way traffic because of this mindset. And it baffles me that people still want to jump on the back of them and shut them down. And do you find that, when you're dealing with maybe people that have been coached by other people that are still, stuck in a really a performance and an outcome-based mindset?
Oh, look, most athletes are in an outcome-based mindset. It's a really tough thing to break, and especially in cricket where how you go is a number next to your name. Whereas other sports, that's you guys in the UK play so much football, soccer, like if you go, team won 1-0, like there's no number next to your name really in the stats sheet. Whereas cricket, you look down a scorecard, there's a number next to your name. So you're defined on any given day by the number next to your name. So it's really, really hard not to. But that's where I try and come in and say, look, like this is about the season, or this is about like a career. It's not about one innings. You look at Virat Kohli's one innings, or Steve Smith, Joe Root, Kane Williamson's one innings. You could pick an innings where they nicked off first ball and you might think they suck. But why are they great? Why is anyone great? Because they've been great over a long period of time. And they're judged on the fact that they've scored 30-something hundreds and they average 50, etc. So to me, it's really, really common having this performance-based mindset, but it's I think the best players are able to get through that and understand that it's the process that they can control. And part of the process is enjoying it. And then if I can get all this right, that'll take care of itself. I'm going to have good days. I'm going to have not so good days. And they don't live on this, what I call the emotional roller coaster, where they're really high and happy when they're scoring runs and they're really low and sad when they're not doing well. So they're able to go, yeah, there's going to be good days. Cool. And I've had a good day. I'm going to enjoy it with my mates, go out for a few beers and have fun. But I still go back to work on Monday, like go back to either my job or I go back to the nets and get better on Monday. Or I got a duck, yeah, it sucks, but the team won. I'm still happy for my team and the mates, and my mate got 100. How good's that? And you know what? Doesn't mean I'm a bad player. I get back to work on Monday again. So Kobe Bryant is someone I see a lot of his clips on Instagram, and he's sort of had an amazing mindset. And he said, like, right, his sort of advice to young athletes was like, okay, you won, you did well, cool, you get back to work on Monday. Okay, you lost, you did poorly, cool, you get back to work on Monday. It's this journey. It's not about the outcome in any one moment, but it's so hard. Like an 11-year-old I coached last night who's crying after getting a duck. He thinks that defines him in this moment. He doesn't have the vision of wisdom of what I have now, looking back on everything and knowing everything and within this landscape. Like he just thinks that means he's no good. So it's trying to help them understand that it doesn't define you. And the good thing is usually you get another opportunity next week.
I always talk about it. It's like the globe. If you view the Earth from where the sun is, it's this smooth ball. But then you zoom in on Google Earth, and you've got these mountain ranges, and those are your innings. You might have a mountain range up here, and then there's a bit of flat land, and there's a valley, then there's a mountain range. So and the key is to try and see it from a height, isn't it? Try and see that curve. So long as that curve, that level is something that you accept, and if it's not, then work. But yeah, try not to view the individual innings as your sole outcome.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we get back to pre-season. All clubs will have a 10, 12-week window where they'll be indoors. Depending on the weather, it might be a little bit longer, but we've had a few months not talking about it, me and Hugh, so we're doing all right.
Yep.
How much of that time would you spend with your players in pre-season, Tom, effectively doing that technical versus just hitting balls and getting into that mindset? The variation between getting the bowlers to do it versus the bowling machine, for example.
Well, so I work in an individual space. I'm working with individual athletes, not with teams. So the process for me is normally when the season ends, we'll set a plan for the next season, for the winter. And we'll say, right, how long do you want off? How long do you think you need off? And make sure they have a good break. Make sure they have a good 4, 6, 8 week break. No cricket. Now, I say you can be an athlete 365 days of the year, but you don't need to be a cricketer because you'll burn out, you'll get over it, you'll lose the hunger, etc. So make them have a bit of a break. Then we sort of plan what are the things that you want to be better at the start of next season. Identify, and a sort of an activity I have them do is write out 10 things that are specific that you want to be better at in your game next year. So it might be slog sweeping left arm spin. It might be cutting fast bowling. It might be learning the scoop shot. It might be batting for longer periods. So they identify 10 things and then say, right, pick the 3 most important. They're the 3 things that if you can have at the start of next season, they're the things we're going to try and focus on in the winter. And usually there's something technical in there. 1 or 2 things technical. Or it might be just skill development, like I want to learn the sweep shot. So then based on what they've come up with of what they want to achieve moving into next season, that's how we'll structure training. So a lot of people, but generally I'll say say they're getting back into training in May. May, June and July is pretty technical focused. We'll be trying to tighten up things. I'll obviously have my opinions on things. They'll say they're 3 things, but I'll have my opinions from a technical fundamentals point of view. Like they might say, I want to improve my power hitting, my reverse sweep and this. And I'll say, yeah, but we've got to keep getting better at your forward defense. Like you're getting your pad blown off. So we'll then spend the first phase or the first block of the preseason, the winter training, really trying to go deeper into the technical things where they can be very thoughtful around their body and their movements and their technique. And there's no game to worry about in a day or 2. And then as we get close to the season, hopefully we've made some changes and we've made some impact there. We'll start to move into some contest-based sessions where there's no technique. But from my point of view, I am their private coach, the guy they come to once a week. They're also getting sessions elsewhere. So usually they're getting their contest sessions at training with their club. So they're going to club training twice a week. They're facing bowlers. They're practicing their routines. They're practicing facing bowlers, making decisions. So then they'll come back to me and we'll do the technical work sort of thing. So I think that to answer your question for anyone listening, it's trying to have a plan, saying, what do I want to be better at next year? Then like setting the goal of what you want, then creating the plan of how to get there, and then executing the plan, saying, right, in January, I'm going to train twice a week, once with the club on a Sunday, once with my private coach on a Tuesday. And Sunday is going to be all about just batting and having a bit of fun with my mates. Tuesday is going to be technical. February, I'm going to have a 3rd and a 4th session. March, we're going to do this. Like having some structure, I think, otherwise you're throwing a dart at a dartboard and hoping something hits. I think you've got to have a plan and structure. And each person, again, it's different. It's individualized. Each person should hopefully be able to evaluate, where am I at? What did I do well last year? Oh, what didn't I do well? Every time I faced spin, I couldn't score. I want to develop scoring shots against spin. So then you develop a plan of how to do that. I want to get better at bowling the Yorker because I kept missing my Yorker in the death overs. Okay, well, how do you practice that? So getting a plan and then understanding, okay, what resources do I have? I can train with the club indoors twice a week. I need to go and book a coach and a net once a week. I need to do this. I need to go and get to the gym. I need to get fitter. Like looking at the whole thing, 6 pillars again, and identifying where you're strong, where you're not so strong, and areas of improvement, then creating a plan around that.
Awesome. In terms of video, is that a tool you use a fair bit in your coaching? Because obviously looking at game day video now, there's so much more video available for these top leagues. First grade, I think, is all streamed. Most Premier Leagues are fully streamed. Now we've got the national counties that's all streamed. Do you, when you get somebody come to you, do you sort of have a look and see, right, try and get an understanding of them as a player from any video that's out there before they've come to you?
No, I don't generally look at other stuff. I generally say to them, tell me about you. Where are you strong? What's your best look like? Tell me, get them to describe themselves. Then I will set up my tripod and my phone and I'll film them at the start and I'll just wang to them, sidearm to them for 5 or 10 minutes just to watch them play right now. Watch them bat, see how they move forward, see how they move back, see how they make decisions, see how they play. Then I will pick up a few things from a technical point of view and I'll usually have my computer on hand and I'll send the video from my phone to my computer and we'll sit down on the couch where I coach and and we'll look at footage of them, and I'll then start to talk about fundamentals that I believe in from footage I show them of Marnus, of Smith, of Root, of Williamson, of their best players. I say, look, this is what they do. This is what you do. Here's you, them. This is what I see them do. This is what you're doing. This is the gap. And it's pretty hard to argue. Yeah, but my other coach said this, and I've been told this by my dad. I'm like, okay, cool. Well, I'm just saying this is what the best players do. This is what
you've asked me, and this is what you see.
Oh, that's just not even my opinion. I'm saying, look, this is you, and this is the best. What do you see? And they go, oh yeah, look, I'm stepping there, and they're all there. Okay, that's something we've got to get better at.
Yeah.
So it's not even it's not even an opinion. It's just presenting the evidence and letting them see. Because I've got heaps of clips that I've gathered over the years of the great players, and it's like, okay, here's them. There's a difference.
And it's so easy for people to watch that on TV now, on live stream, as you said, that if they don't get it there and then, you'd like to think that those players are going to go home and go, well, maybe I will have a look and get that feel for it and understand what they're doing, isn't it?
Yeah, and that comes back to how good do they really want to be? Because we live in a world with so many distractions, and so many people spend all their time on kids and young people on social media and Snapchat and whatever. They're so connected to each other digitally, but who's willing to put their phone down for half an hour and watch footage and watch themselves and say, right, what was I like? This is one thing Teague Wiley does so much and so well, is just constantly looking at Kane Williamson. Like, how's he batting? How am I batting? Well, what was I doing a year ago when I got that 100? And he's constantly looking for the minor details that could make a big difference. But most people are not willing to go to that detail. Most people would rather watch Netflix, know that they've got training tomorrow, and that's enough. But if you're truly willing to become a student of the game and a student of yourself and your game, well, that's what you do. You put your phone down for an hour. You don't go out every night, and you sort of go and sit there and you look at footage and you go, yeah, okay, if I tried this, you maybe then get your bat and you get in front of the mirror and you do a bit of shadow batting and you're trying to problem solve. You're trying to fix things. And so there's no shortage of content that you can use now. You go on YouTube, you write AB de Villiers highlights, Sachin Tendulkar highlights. You can find all the footage you want and you can use it, but most people aren't willing to do it. And even after listening to this, some people are like, that's a great idea, I'm going to do it. And people might do it for a week and then they stop because they have better things to do or they get bored. But the best players are willing to just do it over and over.
And that word bored is a really interesting one, because I use that with my juniors when I'm coaching them. I'll say to them, look, what you've got to remember is getting things right and getting to the level that you want to be, you're going to have to go through the boring stuff and just repeat. And the story I always tell them is, I remember seeing a masterclass a few years ago with Kevin Peterson, where he described when he was out of form, he would go back to hitting a ball off a tee. And then he'd go from a tee to having someone doing a drop feed for him and with softballs, before he even got close to hitting a hard ball. And when you explained that to an 11-year-old, that someone with a reputation of Kevin Peterson would go back to hitting off a tee, like, but why? Because he wanted to get his feet in the right place, because his head was going there. And like, right. And then you can see with an 11-year-old, sometimes they don't want to go back to doing that. They still want that ball being wanged down at them. But actually, that's what they need, just to repeat, and get that muscle memory going, isn't it?
Yeah, and go back to the basics. What's funny but sad is I often, many times I've had this experience where I'm in one net with a young pro or a Josh Philippi, or a Teague Wiley or a John Wells, guys I've coached a fair bit, and they're professional cricketers. They're some of the best cricketers in the country and the world. And we're doing underarms, or we're doing something pretty simple. And in the next net is an 11-year-old with a bowling machine cranked up, getting his toes blown off. He's missing every ball. He's almost crying because he can't hit a ball. And they think that that's what they need to do because they see the best players facing 140 and they're trying to face 140. It's like, no, the best players are doing the basics well. They've got world-class basics, which then allows them to go and face 140 Ks. But most kids are not patient enough to go through the process. I had a kid come to me at 13, and he was maybe he was 14. He was a pretty good district cricketer. He was going pretty well. He'd been having a good season, and I watched him bat, and I was like, oh, there's some terrible, like, fundamentally things going on here. And I didn't let him face a bowling machine or do anything for 2 months. We did underarms for 2 months before his positions got better, that we then progressed to a bowling machine. And we didn't go near a sidearm for a while because it was like, we've got to fix and work on these fundamentals. And he was good. He was really patient and doing what I said. And but there's so many others that are like, oh, I did 10 underarms this week, that's enough. Or all I want to do is face bowls or sidearm. They're not doing the basics. And it's the basics that matter. And no matter how good you become, you mentioned Kevin Peterson and his story, no matter how good you become, the basics are still the most important thing.
Those basics, we're using the word basic a lot here, but effectively that goes back to cricket mentoring and the 6 pillars of success. It is keeping it simple with what we do, whether it's emotional, tactical, technical. It's keeping it simple and making those 1%, marginal gains. And I'm a big Dave Brailsford fan, and he, back in 20, whenever it was, nobody had ever heard of these marginal gains and these 1%. And then when he started doing British cycling, it's all we ever hear about in sport now, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And that comes from the great book. What's the book? I think I read it in Atomic Habits recently, where that was one of the early chapters where he spoke about that, and it was like, how do I get 1% better every week, or how do we get a marginal gain? And I think that they spoke about using different massage gels to see the impact that had on the cyclist, and like using different types of material. And if we can get 1% better in 10 things, that's a big difference. So it's the same. It's exactly the same. It's not, no one wakes up and goes from being a third team cricketer to the best first team cricketer. No one wakes up and goes from being a 14-year-old to a test cricketer. You've got to just keep getting a little bit better every day and then unlock your best and optimal mindset so that you can then go and have those amazing performances.
So if I was to summarize, our head coach's thought process for pre-season here, Hugh, it's dead simple, isn't it? Get stuck in to start with, and enjoy just bowling that ball, getting bat on ball and being around the lads and doing all those things that we all enjoy. But then actually make a plan. Don't just do the same thing that you do in week one for the next 10 weeks. Make a plan. What do you want to improve on? Player by player. They've all got something they want to improve on. It doesn't matter whether they're 15 years old or 45 years old. Just make a plan, Tom, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, set some goals, identify what you want to be better at, and then work backwards from there and make a plan. And yeah, be thoughtful. Just be thoughtful with what you want to do. How are you going to use your time? A lot of people listening to this will have full-time jobs. They'll be busy. They'll be parents. But we all have 24 hours in a day, and you get to choose ultimately how you use it. You might have a job that takes out 8 hours of your day. So are you going to get up before your job? Are you going to go for a run then so that you can free up time in the evening? Like, what are you going to do? Are you going to stop watching so much TV so that you can hit some more balls? Like, everything we do is a choice. No one has a gun to our head and says, you must tomorrow watch Netflix and not go for a run. Like, you get to choose how you want to live your life. I'm here at 10 p.m. talking about cricket because I want to grow my brand and grow my business and help cricketers around the world. And I'll talk about this till 1 a.m. if I have to, because that's my choice. I want to do this. So anyone listening to this, they get to choose how they want to spend their time. And if someone says, oh, but I'm busy. Yeah, I'm busy too. Everyone's busy. But I'm carving out time in my week to run 30 Ks on the weekend because I'm choosing that. Like, I've got 2 young kids. I'm busy. You guys are busy. You've got jobs, but you're running a podcast on the side. Like, everyone's busy. So I think that it's those that are serious about getting better. It's setting the goals, making a plan, and being thoughtful with it. Like, where are you going to make the time so that you can make the game?
I think also it's a choice. You can choose to enjoy cricket, because quite a lot of people don't actually enjoy cricket, do they? No. But it's something you can go, do you know what? I'm going to enjoy it today.
Yeah, which is really sad. It's sad because we're so focused on the outcome.
Absolutely. I think you've brought it round full circle there for me, Scolls, where, whilst the last few episodes we've been talking to you about coaching, Western Australia, your journey and all those things. Yes, Cricket Mentoring is a partner of our podcast, and we would fully recommend anybody jumping in and getting a subscription with Cricket Mentoring, because the access you then get to listening about these lessons, seeing some of the videos online, listening to Ellie Threckeld, I'm just thinking aloud now, Peter Hatzoglu talking about his journey through franchise cricket a few months. You get to listen to all of these people, but also then ask the questions and talk to them on a regular basis. And there's so much content in there, quite literally, for you guys to pick up on all of these things, isn't there?
Well, exactly. And like I'm trying to create a platform and a place for serious and committed cricketers, parents of serious and committed cricketers, and coaches to go to learn in a curated way. Because you can learn online, you can Google and you can find things, but we're trying to create a community where you've got like-minded people who are on a similar journey to you from different parts of the world, or maybe they're in your backyard as well. But you've got access to coaches and mentors to ask questions. You've got access to professional players. You've got access to resources. And it's your place you go to learn and get better and develop as a person and as a cricketer, or as a coach, or as a parent supporting a young cricketer. So, yeah, look, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to make it accessible to anyone, anywhere in the world, at any time.
And that, to me, is the perfect way to bring this episode to an end. We talk about podcasting, and you can listen to it anywhere in the world. You can talk about coaching now anywhere in the world. You don't have to have that coach who comes down to your gym once a week. We can talk about it, we can watch it, we can learn from it. And actually, I'd beg anyone to just jump on Cricket Mentoring at some point and say, if you can't learn something from that just in one half an hour, and drop that Netflix for half an hour, for the price of a coffee a week or something like that, it's well worth it. And I've jumped in for the last couple of months and been on one or two of the webinars with Waldo and some of the guys that have been on there. Some of the just small tips you pick up as a coach from my perspective, but as a player, are just fundamental, aren't they?
Yeah, well, that's what we're trying to do, and help anyone. We've got pros in there, we've got amateurs, we've got kids who are starting with their parents. It's trying to be a place where people just can come and learn and ask questions for wherever they're at. So appreciate you guys supporting us.
Absolutely. Hey, it's great to be a part of the cricket mentoring community. We believe that we're creating a Premier League cricket community over here in the UK where more and more people want to talk about Premier League cricket. There is, let's be honest, there's a bit of money starting to float around a bit as well. It's starting to grow. But the interest, categorically, the interest's there. We know that, otherwise we wouldn't be waffling on like this as long as we do, would we, Hugh?
No, the cricket mentoring community has been brilliant for me in terms of just taking my coaching with my kids and also with the teams that I've coached. It's just like having your own private cricket coach. You can just drop onto there and get great feedback, especially if you can use the video tools, put some video up there, get people to look at players, look at people discussing other players, techniques that work. It's absolutely priceless. I think it's as good a cricket community as there is anywhere on the internet. It's so valuable for any coach. Doesn't matter what age group you work with, from kids through to professionals. It's absolutely brilliant.
There's your testimonial, Tom. Do you want that in writing from Hugh?
That's brilliant. Appreciate that. Thank you, both of you.
Absolutely. Hey, great chatting again, Scolls, and look forward to catching up with you again, probably somewhere towards closer to the start of the season. By the time we get towards the start of the Premier League season, we'll have a far greater breadth of who we know is coming over and who's not coming over from Australia. We've seen in recent weeks one or two signings that are quite interesting. I know of one or two that are quite interesting that aren't actually announced just yet. But when the one that we've seen in not too far ago, Matt Kuhneman coming over. Matt Kuhneman, I think that's an exciting sort of overseas player coming over, and the Premier League's growing. There's people want to play in it, and we know that there's clubs around the country want to be able to do these things right, and that's why it's great to have you on board and working with the coach cricket mentoring community.
Yeah, thanks, guys, and it's a great thing you're doing. I've always been a big fan of Premier League cricket, and I wish there was a podcast when I was playing and in the leagues and stuff. So looking forward to hearing more about it, and hopefully we'll get a few cricket mentoring athletes over there this winter and onto the podcast if you're keen. And hopefully the UK can sort those rules out and we can get a few more athletes over there.
We're working on it.
All the best, Scolls.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for listening to the Premier League Cricket Show. If you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on future episodes and stay updated on all the latest news, views and discussions from around the Cricket Premier Leagues. And be sure to follow us on X, formerly known as Twitter, and Instagram at TPL Cricket Show on both. Join the conversation, share your thoughts and connect with us and your fellow Premier League cricket fans. And hey, if you enjoyed the show, why not show us some love? Leave us a 5-star review on your favourite podcast platform, as it helps other potential listeners to find us when they're searching for cricketing podcasts. Thanks again for being part of the Premier League Cricket Show family, And until next time, have a good one.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Check engine light on? Take the guesswork out of your check engine light with O'Reilly Veriscan. It's free. Ask for O'Reilly Veriscan today.